So you've recently introduced some updates to Juniper Networks Apstra platform. And I guess before we go into those, it might be a good idea to remind viewers, listeners about the platform, the basics, what it is, what it does.
Yeah, so the Apstra platform, we acquired Apstra about a year ago, and they're really focused on delivering reliable data center operations. And how do we do that? It's really founded on intent-based networking, i.e. the customer defines what's the business intent, what are the requirements, and then the system goes and actually orchestrates that, i.e. pushes the configuration down to the switches. And it's really focused on the whole life cycle. So management and ops platform, all the way from day zero when you design it to rolling out and operating the network. And it's multi-vendor, which I think is one of the other unique things about it is if a customer's got a mix of products or they're migrating to Juniper, they're able to run that multi-vendor solution, which I think is big in the times today. I mean, you look at what's going on right now, a lot of pressures with supply chain constraints. I think that's one of the things that's really resonated with customers, being able to operate the network, even if it is a heterogeneous network.
And in terms of the updates themselves, I guess a good place to start would be you've extended, if that's the right word, the idea of the platform to, we all know about the edge and everyone's talking about it, maybe doesn't, definitions vary from company to company, individuals, but yeah. You've extended out to the edge. So what does that mean in practical terms? What have you done and what benefits does that bring?
Yeah, so the big thing really was, again, extending to edge data centers. So you can have a collapsed fabric design. So this is big for customers now where they may have a small data center out at some of their satellite offices. So I think that's again, it's really big, where previously we were very much focused on, okay, deploy your data center in the central location. It is big. I mean, we've got a lot of customers where they've got, for example, operating in multiple countries. They want to have data centers local just to bring the data closer to the apps. Because I think that's one thing we're seeing is more and more as the devices go up and the applications start to use more bandwidth, is you want to get the processing closer to where that data is coming from. So I think it's big for the industry just being able to operate and extend Apstra out to the edge of the network.
Yeah, and in terms of, you've referenced, obviously, companies are already doing that with multiple data sites, but is it relatively early in that sort of edge evolution, or a lot of companies just using what you give them to sort of, I guess, optimize their existing data center infrastructure, or are you seeing build outs of some real new edge data centers and applications as well?
I think we're already seeing customers deploying it, but the challenge that we've been hearing from customers is they've got to, go and operate that and configure it all locally. They don't really have this global view today. So that's what I think we're really focused on, is how can you now define the policies at a global level and then push that out to the edge of the network. So that's, I think, key in a couple areas. One, understanding what policies are deployed across the network, what the topology is. But when it comes to issues, you're trying to troubleshoot an issue, being able to have that view helps you accelerate that troubleshooting.
Okay, and if edge is a fairly buzz topic, then security is an ongoing important topic, if you like, ever present. But I was going to say net zero, which is a slightly different thing, but we will call it zero trust, which is the right title. Zero trust is one of the big trends in that security sector. And again, I think one of your updates for the Apstra platform addresses helping people with that security quest. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's top of mind right now. I mean, even more so than when we had actually come out with the release. Just you look at what's going on in the environment today in networking, a lot of risk of cyber attacks right now. So I think it's definitely front and center for customers looking at how do you just secure that data center. So yeah, we introduced our policy assurance for Zero Trust Data Center. So you can define security policies and do it in a vendor agnostic way that they then get pushed down across the infrastructure, and you can segment the traffic. I mean, a great example is one of our customers who has, multiple brands running on their network that are competitors. So like a retail good, they're able to actually segment so that the traffic can't actually cross-pollinate between those two clients that customer has. So I think that's been big. The documentation as well, just being able to understand what policies are implemented, what was the intent of those policies, so that I know, is it actually securing my data center and applications?
And just a supplement, I mean, this is a slightly, I suppose, vague question, if that's right. But do you, as Juniper, have any sort of idea of where your responsibility network ends and where security begins for the security vendors? Because clearly the two are pretty closely related. I'm just wondering, if you have any thoughts as to who's responsible for what, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I mean, we do have security products in the portfolio as well, our connected security. So we really believe there's got to be some level of integration between the network and the security vectors, because what the network has is the insight, right? We, as a device comes on, as a servers and applications there, we know identity and role. And then you can map that into the security engine to really apply those policies, understand, what's the device, what's the user that's actually operating there. So I know what access should I be giving that application or that user. So yeah, I think there really does need to be an integration there. I think the other thing is, you look at on the security side, is there's definitely a big opportunity or need to actually integrate. So you see a lot of, where a customer may have a security solution from multiple vendors or several security solutions. You've got to be able to, tie that identity across the two. So I think it's important as well for the interoperability between them.
Thanks. And then getting back to the updates to the Apstra platform, the final piece seems to be around a new migration service. Again, I know the word migration covers should we say, a multitude of sins, but what's the service offering specifically?
Yeah, and I mean, what's the value, like the value or the driver for us coming out with these professional services? It's really about simplifying that deployment, especially as you get into larger customers where it's a bit more complex. I think migration's been the other one, just helping customers feel more comfortable and lower their risk as they migrate to Juniper Apstra. Because as you've probably seen, we've seen pretty impressive growth in the business. This is just one more way we can help customers migrate and get that intent-based solution and value quicker. So there's actually two services that we introduced here. One is a deployment service. So when a customer's going out and deploying, let's say, spinning up a new data center, it actually simplifies them going through that process. The second service is a migration service. So if you've got a customer migrating from vendor A to Juniper, it'll actually help them migrate quicker and be able to do it in place, so they can have both infrastructures running for a time as they're rolling over the network and the applications. So yeah, I mean, definitely seen a big interest here. Like I said, with the business growing, just helping customers migrate quicker and get to value faster.
And in terms of migration from sort of vendor A to yourselves, for example, I'm just wondering, I mean, I'm thinking in that, for example, in the banking sector, once upon a time, if you changed bank from one bank to another, the bank you were leaving was very unhelpful, if you like, when you were moving. And nowadays they seem to be pretty easygoing and help everyone, wherever they want to. I'm just wondering, in the network world, are vendors who are losing customers reasonably helpful in terms of what they need to do migration, or are there occasions, without naming people obviously, but are there cases where sometimes the end user feels a little bit let down by their previous vendor as they're trying to move to a new one?
I mean, I think the biggest one, I mean, I've heard, just as they're looking at migrating, one of the challenges is just understanding, what the old network, how was it configured? What was the architecture? What was the intent of it when they were designing it? Because a lot of times, and I think that's one of the fundamental reasons the team founded Apstra, was there was just not this, like the knowledge of how the networks designed or architected quite often sits in, the network architect's head. It's not documented unless they've done a really good job of writing that down. So I think that's one of the core things with the Apstra solution is it actually documents all that. So you've got an audit trail. Let's say you have a changeover in staff, because I mean, we see what's going on right now in terms of the workforce around the world. Is there's a lot of people making a shift in jobs right now. And if you lose your architect, I've heard this many times from customers, they've lost the knowledge of what the data center network topology was and the architecture or intent. So I think that's where it's been big. So yeah, as you look at migration, really getting a good understanding of how the network is configured and why, so that when you actually go and migrate, you can put those policies in place correctly as well is big.
Okay. And having talked about, I suppose, not the theory, but the new pieces to the platform, it'd be good to understand maybe how one or two of your customers have been working with that platform, whether or not it's around these new services which you're introducing, or just historically the success stories you've had with it.
Yeah, so I mean, I can share some examples here. I mean, one that's top of mind for me is Raiffeisen Informatik. So they're an IT service provider for financial and insurance. We recently did a press release with them actually mid-March. So they have selected and rolled out Juniper Apstra as well as our QFX. And I mean, the big things for them were just how do we actually manage, deploy, run the network with a lean IT staff? The other challenge that they were seeing as well is, as I talked to a little bit earlier, is some of these pressures on supply chain. I mean, how do we get the switching infrastructure? If you've got, for example, let's say a vendor has a chipset issue in an area, just being able to feel comfortable there that if they had a problem, they can actually mix and match products and be able to run it with a single platform. So I think that was big for them. There's actually a great case study on juniper.net of them going into a little bit more detail. And they're also actually speaking, we have a global summit event that's happening in May where the IT leader from Raiffeisen Bank's actually going to be speaking. So I definitely recommend viewers to check that out, either live or streamed after the effect. Just to hear from him directly. I mean, what are some of the benefits they're seeing? But yeah, certainly a big thing is how do they actually run the network, like I said, and do it efficiently, get the network and the configuration changes out quickly across the platform.
Okay, that's great. And maybe just as we finish off, I know it's always difficult for you to maybe give away secrets as to what the company's working on, but maybe you mentioned the supply chain issue. There's obviously sustainability. Maybe some of the topics that folks are wrestling with, whether it's on the vendor side or your customers. Any thoughts as to how are things going to get worse before they get better with some of these things, and also what is Juniper's plan around some of this, or generally, or as I say, if any technology solutions are in the pipeline, you can at least hint at, and that'd be lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're going to see here, just as we look at coming through the air on the Juniper Apstra side, is like we had done with the Edge, which is really about extending the topologies we support. I think that's certainly an area we'll continue to invest in. I mean, customers are seeing the value of Apstra. How do we get that out to more customers, more use cases? So I think certainly extending there. And then, I mean, in terms of supporting platforms as well, just continuing, like you said, being able to operate, get insight into more and more platforms as we go through the year. So I think that's big as well, extending the reach of it.
Okay, that's lovely. It's been good to chat, Tristan. So thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you.